Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Death toll from coronavirus in Italy rises from 133 to 366 in just one day as Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu briefs President Muhammadu Buhari on how the state is curtailing import of the virus. Police arrest 9 suspected ritualists over death of mother of 2 in Ogun State. Nigerian women join others the world over to call for gender equality on International Women's Day. And U.S. Senator and former Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris endorses Joe Biden for president. Plus, we have some sports stories. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from the respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire, and Roku TV. Now, the need for gender equality is the main theme for the commemoration of the International Women's Day this year, and Nigerian women are not left out. Let's get more perspectives on the commemoration of the day. We're now being joined on the news at 10 by Mrs. Amina Oyagbola, the founder, chairperson of Women in Successful Careers, WISCA. I'd like to welcome you to the news at 10.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. As the world marks this day with a theme, each for equal, how well would you say Nigerian women, Nigerians are moving along that line?
Well, what I would say really is that I think that there's a lot more awareness on the gender issues. There's a lot more sensitivity around the gender issues. I also think women themselves are a lot more conscious of their rights and so on. But I think definitely we're far from, we do not have an equal world. I think there's still a long way to go. I think with the Beijing Declaration, definitely that also helped, and as a result of the Beijing Declaration several years ago, 25 years ago now, several structures and actions were taken, but real concrete steps to close the gender gap, I think we have a long way to go. We're far from having achieved an equal world, which is of course why the theme for this year is Generation Equality, each for equal, so that we all realize that, the gender issue is a human rights issue, it's a business issue, and that both men and women have responsibility in their own enlightened self-interest to try and do whatever we can each do to try and close the gender gap.
So perhaps the first International Women's Day occurred in 1911. We hear that about 1 million people came out, and then ever since then we've had messages. And this week also, so many messages, programs, drawing attention to this. But what concrete steps do you think we're really taking?
Well, I think a lot of things can be done and need to be done. I mean, the Gender Gap Index has shown that, in terms of female representation on the political front, we've actually slipped. Only about 6%, female representation in our own National Assembly, which is very, very dismal. So concrete steps need to be taken in that regard. In terms of passing the necessary laws that will give you confidence that some of these things will be attended to, something as simple as a gender equality bill has not yet been passed. So I think, the time has come for concrete action to be taken. What kind of concrete action? I really believe that we need to begin to set targets, both in the public sector and in the private sector. But that should not erode the importance of ensuring that the process that is put in place for the emergence of women is one that is done on a merit basis, so that you have competent, capable people who can emerge to take on those positions. But, an organization like Goldman Sachs, just a simple policy said, I'm not going to interact with vendors who do not have women on their boards. So if you want to do business with us, make sure you have women on your boards. Things like that in the private sector can easily be done. So gender-friendly policies, looking at the structures inside our systems that impede institutional structures and processes that actually affect women progression, women inclusion in the workplace, make it harder for women to be able to make their contribution and be more productive are things that we can do. And then addressing some infrastructure issues, some security issues. There's in terms of child enrollment in schools, schools. A lot of problems that we have in the Northeast, for example, are definitely bound to affect the girl child, significantly. But it's not only in the Northeast, in all parts of the country. The fact that, certain basic infrastructure is not available, sanitation, water, no light, because you find that in the rural areas, a lot of the young girls are the ones that help, and the women are the ones that, fetch the water, make sure that food is provided, perform all the house chores, and so on and so forth. So if those basic infrastructure things are taken care of, that would also enable more women to participate more actively, more children to go to school, ensuring that there's security in our schools will also ensure that the girl child's needs are taken care of. And also ensuring that, we pay attention to healthcare. So, infant mortality, primary health care, the people most impacted by these things are women and girls.
The government has a major role to play.
Absolutely.
But when you look on the other hand, I mean, you're someone who's risen to the top in the corporate world. How much can successful women do to mentor women that are coming up, younger women?
Thank you for that question, because, this is something that's very dear to my heart, and which is basically at the heart of why, Whisker was birthed. We focus on leadership and mentorship, and I think we need more people joining the party in terms of paying attention and making themselves available to mentor the younger women and pull them up the ladder. So what we do in Whisker is essentially try to ensure that we help to build the capacity of women so that they can progress, through the career ladder in their organizations, more rapidly, and get into the positions of power, get a seat at the table where they can actually influence and effect major change in the organizations. Because we know that, you need to be in the decision-making body, you need to be in the executive committees, you need to be on the boards where you can influence policy, which will, drill down all the way down in the organization. And it's only when, you have the female voice in the room that the female perspective will be taken into consideration. So pending when that time comes, when you have, proper or equal female representation at the top, I would say a few simple things that we can do very easily. First, CEOs of organizations should make, the gender issue a priority. Because anything a CEO of an organization, a corporate organization, makes a priority, everybody else will pay attention to it. Second of all, I think, the United Nations has done very well to come up with what they call the Women Empowerment Principles. As an organization, Whisker is trying to advocate that these principles, these UN principles, Women Empowerment Principles, just 7 principles, are embraced by corporate institutions. And there's also the He for She campaign. If all organizations sign on to the He for She campaign, because we cannot achieve gender equality without the support of men. This is not a conversation about women. Women's rights is a human rights issue. So if you care about human rights, whether you're male or female, you understand that the gender issue is something that you should be concerned.
It's also not a conversation about feminism.
No, it's not. It's something you should be concerned about. So, the He for She campaign, again, if you go onto the UN website, there's protocols and very simple things that you can do. Have a he and she event, deploy a gender training so you understand the issues around unconscious bias and so on in the workplace, putting in place structures inside your organization that will enable women to participate more effectively, flexi work, and so on and so forth. And if you can afford it, creches, pause rooms, so that when women are going through bringing up young children, a room where they can express milk and so on and so forth, and continue to do their work.
We'd like to thank you, Mrs. Amina Oyagbola, founder, chairperson, Women in Successful Careers, Whisker. Thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
In the meantime, Fidelity Bank PLC also joined in the celebration with a mentoring and networking session for women entrepreneurs. The managing director of the bank, Nnamdi Okonkwo, reiterates the financial institution's commitment to giving women the support needed to successfully implement their business ideas under the Fidelity Bank's managed SME scheme.
The story of the Nigerian woman in business is gradually changing from operators of a small family enterprise to managers of big corporate organizations. Fidelity Bank PLC has consistently championed this cause through its SME scheme to support the growth and development of small businesses, particularly enterprises run by women.
Some of us want to stay to build.
This time, The company is providing a mentorship platform to educate female entrepreneurs on how to scale up their businesses.
Business is an independent entity, separate from you. Pay yourself a salary. Tell your neighbor. What would it do for you? It tells you what you can afford and what you cannot afford. If you do have employees, 1 staff, 2 staff, remember that they are an investment. They are an investment, and you need to take the time to train them properly. When you employ them, write an employment letter. Let it be clear what they're expected to do.
You're broke now, you're the MD of your company, you can't pay your staff, you're struggling. It gets better. But how does it get better? You have to look at your business. What kind of business are you really doing? You have to start thinking, this is 2020. It's even easier now to succeed than when 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago when we were starting.
The bank promises to continue to expand the frontiers of funding for SMEs, as well as continue support for women entrepreneurs.
You saw some successful female entrepreneurs already who came here, shared their stories, and offered to be mentors to the younger ones. So that's just one of the things that Fidelity does to strengthen our women empowerment program. Again, as you know, recently we obtained a facility of $50 million from the African Development Bank. About 30% of this is dedicated to female entrepreneurs.
Through this platform, Fidelity Bank hopes to give women in business a stronger voice as this revolutionary day continues to inspire women across the world.
And the wife of the Anambra State Governor, Mrs. Ebele Obiano, also presented starter packs and cash donations to 10 inmates of a mentally challenged home in Oyi local government area of the state to mark the International Women's Day. Mrs. Obiano believes it is necessary for everyone to extend love and care to people around them, especially the most vulnerable and mentally challenged persons.
A time to roll out the drums at the mentally challenged person's home in Nteje, in Oyi local government area of Anambra State, as 10 mentally stable inmates reunite with their families. The wife of the state governor, Mrs. Ebele Obiano, joins in the celebration put together by the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs to commemorate the International Women's Day.
In the name of the Father and of the Son.
First, she inaugurates and inspects the refurbished sick bay for the inmates of the home. The Skills Acquisition Center is next in line, designed to help the inmates acquire skills that will facilitate their reintegration into society after recovery.
The sick bay will be very useful in the treatment and care of the sick inmates. Before now, we convey inmates to hospitals. It is a thing of joy, therefore, that we can now manage the cases by giving them immediate attention here before referrals for serious cases.
Mrs. Obiano's intervention means so much for everyone here, particularly officials of the Ministry of Women Affairs and State House of Assembly.
The amiable wife of our governor, Her Excellency Dr. Lady Ebele Obiano Sodeme, have supported this center using the instrumentality of Caring Family Enhancement Initiative, CAFE, her pet project, to provide for feeding and clothing to the more than 88 inmates.
One thing we have established is that the Caring Family Enhancement Initiative has had 1 or 2 projects in every local government of Anambra State.
The inmates also join in the merriment as they pick up their starter kits, a bag of rice each, and cash gifts, all courtesy of the governor's wife, who encourages everyone to play a role in supporting and caring for those in need.
And while women across the world celebrate, dignitaries from across the country gathered in the nation's capital, Abuja, to celebrate with the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, as he marks his 63rd birthday. Former military head of state General Yakubu Gowon, the governor of Lagos State Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and his counterpart from Akwa Ibom State Emmanuel Udom joined the Osibajos for a Thanksgiving service. The former head of state extols the virtues of the vice president, commending him for his service to the nation. The vice president, on his part, encouraged Nigerians to let God fight their battles for them at all times. Happy birthday to Nigeria's Vice President. When the News at 10 returns, residents of Isele Azagba community in Delta State are appealing to President Buhari to prevail on security agencies to liberate them from incessant attacks by suspected herdsmen. Do join us again.